Okay, so the last episode, we spent the whole time on your contractor's insurance, the liability and the workers' comp that protects you from their accidents. And if that's the only one you caught, you might be walking around now thinking, great, I checked the contractor, I'm covered. So I have to stop you right there because that was only half the picture. Honestly, maybe less than half. Last time was about making sure they're covered. Today is about the coverage that protects you and the home itself while it's torn open and more exposed than it will ever be. So here's what catches people flat footed. You, the homeowner, have insurance responsibilities of your own during a construction project, not as some nice to have you can skip. A lot of standard construction contracts actually require you to carry insurance. It's written right into the agreement you sign. So this isn't optional, and it's not your contractor's job to handle for you. It's yours. And now for the part that really lands. That homeowner's policy you already have, the one you've been faithfully paying every month for years, when you start a major renovation, it may quietly stop protecting you at the exact moment you need it most. Not because anyone canceled it, because of the language that was sitting in there the whole time waiting for a renovation to trigger it. So I want to be fair here, the same way I was last time. Your insurance company isn't the villain in this story. These policies are written to cover a home you live in and a life you live in it, not a construction site. The gap isn't a scam, it's a mismatch. But a mismatch that you don't see coming can cost you just as much as a scam. So we're going to drag it out into the light here and get into it. So I'll be straight with you about why this matters as much as it does. A renovation is often the single biggest check you'll write outside of buying the house itself. You're pouring your savings into a home that for a few months is sitting half finished and wide open, no locked doors, no finished walls, materials stacked where anyone can see them. That's the most exposed your largest asset will ever be. And it's exactly the window where people assume their coverage is humming along just fine, when in reality, it may have quietly stopped aside. The whole job today is making sure that during that exposed stretch of your project, there's a real policy standing behind your home and behind you. So here's a promise for the next half hour. First, exactly where your existing homeowner's policy can fall short during a renovation and the specific clauses to know. And then second, the policy that's actually built for homes under construction and when you need it. And third, the liability that quietly becomes yours the second you bring your own person onto the job. And fourth, the simple set of moves that closes all of it, most of which start with one phone call. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with the policy that you already own, because the trap is hiding inside the thing you assume is protecting you. A standard homeowner's policy is built around a simple idea. It covers your home and your belongings against sudden, accidental events while you live there. Fire, a burst pipe, a tree through the roof, theft. That's its world. And for ordinary life, it does that job well. The problem is that a major renovation pulls your home out of that ordinary world. And the policy wasn't written for where you've taken it. Let me walk you through the specific places it can fall short, because each one has bitten a real homeowner. First, the work itself usually isn't covered. If your contractor does sloppy work or a remodel goes wrong because somebody made a mistake, your homeowner's policy is not going to pay to fix it. That's not what it's for. It covers sudden accidents, not the quality of the job you chose to have done. So the renovation work lives outside your policy from the start. That trips people up. So let me draw the line clearly here. If lightning hits your house and starts a fire, that's a sudden accidental event. That's your homeowner's policy's whole reason for existing. But if your contractor installs a shower wrong and it leaks behind the tile for 2 months and rots the framing, that's not a sudden accident. That's a workmanship problem, right? And your homeowner's policy will look at and say, not my job. The recourse there runs back to the contractor and the contract that you sign, which is exactly why we spent whole episodes getting the contract right. The insurance you carry and the contract you sign protect you from different things, and you need both pulling their weight. Second, And this is the one that surprises almost everybody. There can be a vacancy problem. A lot of policies have language that reduces or even suspends your coverage if the home sits empty for a stretch of time. And what do people do during a big renovation? They move out. They go stay with family or rent an apartment while the kitchen and bathrooms are all torn apart. They think they're being smart. And in the eyes of that clause, the house is now vacant, which can quietly switch off coverage right when the home is sitting wide open with no one watching it. So let me make that one concrete because it sounds abstract until it isn't. Picture a couple doing a full kitchen and bath remodel. Sensible people. They decide living in a construction zone with two kids is miserable, so they rent a place for 3 months while the work happens. Totally reasonable call. What they don't know is that their policy starts pulling back coverage once the home is unoccupied past about a month. Now it's week 6. A pipe that got bumped during demolition lets go overnight, and water runs through the house for hours before anyone notices because nobody's living there to notice. They file the claim, expecting the policy they've paid into for a decade to handle it. And the insurer points at the vacancy language. The very thing they did to be sensible moving out is the thing that's now being used to deny them. That's not a freak case. Third, there's the question of whether the home even counts as your home under the policy while this is going on. These policies cover what they call your residence, the place you live. Move out for months during a gut renovation, and an insurer can argue the place stopped being your residence for that stretch. It sounds like a technicality. It's not a technicality when the claim gets denied over it. The word in the policy is doing quiet, heavy lifting, and most people never read it until they're reading it across a desk from a claims adjuster. And fourth, many policies exclude losses tied to business or commercial activity on the property. A construction project with crews and subs and materials can look an awful lot like commercial activity to an insurer reading the fine print after something goes wrong. That's the same exclusion I flagged last episode when we talked about an injured worker, and it cuts the same way here. The policy was built to cover your life at home, and a major build in the eyes of that clause isn't your life at home. It's a job site, and a job site is somebody else's department. So do you see the pattern forming here? None of these are some rare freak event. Moving out during a remodel is the normal thing to do. Having crews on site is the entire point of a renovation. And every one of those normal, sensible choices can be the exact thing that trips a clause and leaves you exposed. So here's the part I really want you to take to heart. There is one move that prevents almost all of this, and we'll come back to it in detail at the end. You tell your insurance company what you're about to do before you do it. Most of these gaps exist because the homeowner started a major project and never told their insurer. The company found out when the claim came in, and by then it was too late. Silence is what turns a gap into a denial. So let's lock in segment 1 here. Your existing homeowner's policy generally won't cover the renovation work itself. It can be reduced or suspended if the home sits vacant. The home might not even count as your residence while you're out, and business activity language can exclude a construction project entirely. 4 real gaps, and the thing standing in all of them is a homeowner who didn't make one phone call. Now, there's a policy built specifically to cover a home while it's under construction. Let's meet it. Okay, so this is the good news part of the episode, because once you understand the gap, there's a clean tool designed to fill it. It's called builder's risk insurance. And you may also hear it called course of construction insurance. Same thing, 2 different names. And here's what it is in plain terms. Builder's risk is specialized coverage that protects a building while it's actually under construction, not the finished live-in home your regular policy is built for. The half-finished, exposed, vulnerable version of your home that exists during the project, right? It's coverage made for exactly the window where your standard policy gets nervous. Think of it as a temporary policy for a temporary, riskier version of your house. It covers the gap, and then you set it down when the home is whole again and your regular policy can take back over. So what does it actually cover? The core of It is the destructive events that can hit a structure mid-build. Weather, wind, storm damage, fire, lightning, hail, explosions, and then the two that homeowners forget about until it's too late: theft and vandalism. So let me put that theft and vandalism piece at the scale of your project, because it's more real than people think. A renovation site is a magnet. There's lumber stacked in the driveway, copper and wiring run but not yet closed up, brand new appliances and fixtures sitting in boxes waiting to be installed, expensive tools coming and going, an empty house full of valuable materials, often with no one staying there at night, and you've just learned your regular policy might consider the house vacant. Builder's risk is the coverage that answers when somebody backs a truck up to your site over a long weekend and helps themselves. And the weather side is just as real. Picture your roof opened up for tying into it for the addition and putting a new roof on, the framing exposed, and a storm rolls through that nobody forecasted hard enough. The water damage to everything underneath isn't your contractor's accident. It's just weather hitting a house that's wide open. Builder's risk is built for that exact moment. All right, so let me give you a kind of a story that makes this stick. A homeowner is doing a second story addition. The framing's up, the roof's not closed in yet, and the forecast says light rain. Overnight, that light rain turns into a real storm. Wind driving water sideways into a structure that's basically a sieve right now. By morning, there's standing water on the new subfloor, soaked insulation, and damage running down into the finished rooms below. Nobody was careless. The contractor didn't cause it. It was weather hitting a half-built house. With builder's risk in place, that's a covered loss, and the homeowner is made whole. Without it, the homeowner eats the cost of redoing the work that they already paid for. And that number climbs into the tens of thousands fast. So now a fair question. Doesn't all this extra coverage cost a fortune? Here's the honest answer. Builder's risk is usually a modest cost relative to the size of the project it's protecting. We're talking about insuring a renovation that might run six figures. When you set the cost of the coverage next to the cost of redoing a flooded second story out of your own pocket, it stops looking like an expense and starts looking like one of the smartest small line items in the whole budget. This is the cheap peace of mind for the most exposed your home will ever be. Now, how do you actually get this coverage? So you've got two clean paths, and a smart homeowner picks one of them on purpose rather than just hoping. So path one here is you require your contractor to carry builder's risk insurance, and you make it a written condition of the job. The same way we talked about requiring proof of liability and comp last episode. Many good contractors carry it as a matter of course on larger projects. So path two is you obtain the coverage yourself. Sometimes that's a standalone builder's risk policy. Sometimes your own insurer can add it onto your existing policy as an endorsement. Basically a rider that extends your coverage to cover the home while it's under construction. And either way, the move is the same. You call your insurance agent, you tell them the scope and the timeline of what you're building, and you ask them point blank, what do I need to do so my home is covered the entire time it's torn open? That is a completely normal question, and a good agent will walk you right through it. So builders risk, also called course of construction insurance, covers your home against weather, fire, lightning, which is precisely the window your regular policy gets shaky. You can require a contractor to carry it, or you can obtain it yourself, often as an endorsement on your existing policy. Either way, you decide on purpose. You don't leave it to chance. So that covers your home, the structure. But there's another kind of exposure that has nothing to do with the building and everything to do with who you let onto the property. Let's talk about the liability that quietly becomes yours. This is the part of today that I most need you to hold on to, because it's where well-meaning homeowners walk straight into trouble while thinking they're being smart and saving a little money. Here's the setup. You've got a good general contractor running your renovation, and partway through you get an idea. You think, you know what, well, we've got the place torn up anyway, I'm going to have the roof replaced too. And you've got a guy a roofer or one your neighbor used, who'll do a bit cheaper than through your general contractor. So you hire him directly on the side and you bring him onto the job site. Feels like a savvy move. It is quietly one of the riskiest things that you can do on your own project, and here's why. The second you bring your own subcontractor onto that site, your roofer, hired by you, working for you, you assume all the liability for the work that person performs. You're not under your general contractor's umbrella anymore on that piece of the work. So you stepped out from under it and stood out in the rain on purpose. Now you're the one holding the risk for that roofer. And let me show you exactly how that goes wrong. Because the book lays this out, and I've watched versions of it play out in real life. Your project is halfway done. The work your general contractor has already completed is beautiful. Fresh drywall, new finishes, all the expensive parts, right? And now your own roofer is up top doing the roof, and he makes a mistake. Maybe he leaves it open ahead of a storm. Maybe he punches through something. Either way, water gets in and it ruins the finished work your GC already did. So real damage, real money to the parts of the project that were already done and paid for. So whose insurance pays? Here's the gut punch. Yours, because you brought that roofer on. Your insurance company covers that damage, not his. Your policy takes the hit. And then your insurance company turns around and goes after the roofer to recover what they paid out, which sounds fine until you learn the roofer had no insurance at all. Now your insurer is chasing a guy with nothing. Your premiums are the ones that just took the hit, and the whole thing spirals, all because of a side deal that was supposed to save you a few $100s. And notice what this all comes back to. The exact same discipline from the last episode. The fix is simple and it's kind of non-negotiable. You get evidence of insurance before you let anyone onto your property. Anyone, your own roofer, your own handyman, the guy doing you a favor. If you're hiring them directly, you are now the general contractor for that piece of work, whether you wanted that job or not. And the GC's job, as we covered last time, is to verify coverage before the work starts. So I want to sit on this phrase for a second, the guy doing you a favor, because that's where good people get hurt the most. It's a buddy. It's your brother-in-law. It's a neighbor who does this on the weekends and offered to knock it out for the cost of materials. And asking that person for proof of insurance feels kind of rude, almost insulting. Like you don't trust them. So you skip it. Don't. Because the friendliness of the arrangement does nothing to change the liability of it. If your weekend warrior buddy falls off your roof or floods your house, the warm handshake doesn't pay the bill. Your insurance does, and then your premiums do. The favor that was gonna save you money becomes the most expensive thing on your project. A real friend will understand exactly why you're asking, and a true professional will have the paper ready before you finish the sentence. And remember, the premises liability idea we built last episode, that as the property owner, you owe a basic duty of care to the people working on your land. That doesn't switch off because the worker is your friend or because you hired them on the side. If anything, hiring them yourself pulls that duty in tighter around you because now there's no insured contractor standing between you and the work site. You're it. So if you're taking one thing from this whole segment, take this. The moment you go around your contractor to hire your own person, you've put on that contractor hat and all the liability that comes with it. That's fine. Sometimes there's good reason to do it, but do it with your eyes wide open. And that's the mission that I have here with the Awakened Homeowner, is eyes wide open, enlighten you to this so that you can make the right choices. And so do it with proof of their insurance in your hand first, never on just a handshake. So bringing your own subcontractor on means that you assume the liability for their work. If they cause damage, your insurance pays and then chases them. And if they're uninsured, that chase goes nowhere and you're left holding it. The protection is the same one move every time. Proof of insurance before anyone sets foot on your property. All right, so you know the gaps. You know about builder's risk. You know where your own liability hides. Now, let me make you the homeowner who actually closes all of it. All right, this is where everything turns into action. And the good news is that protecting yourself here is genuinely simpler than the contractor verification that we did last episode. A handful of moves. Most of them are one conversation with your insurance agent. Let's make you the homeowner who handles this before the project starts instead of the one who finds out after. So, move one, and it's the big one. Call your insurance company before any work begins. Before, not after the crew shows up, not when a problem comes up, before the first nail goes in. And when you call, tell them plainly what you're about to do. The scope of the project, how big it is, whether you'll be living in the home or moving out, roughly how long it'll take. You're handing them the exact facts that those gap clauses care about. The vacancy, the residence question, the construction activity. And here's why this single call does so much work. Most of those denied claim horror stories happen specifically because a homeowner never told their insurer. You telling them up front is what keeps the gap from ever opening. Silence is the whole problem. The call is the whole fix. Move two, ask the direct question and get the right coverage in place. Once they know what you're doing, ask them straight, what do I need so my home is fully covered for the entire time it's under construction? And let me tell you, the answer might be a builder's risk policy. It might be an endorsement added onto your current policy. It might be adjusting your coverage to handle the vacancy. Whatever it is, you get it in place before the work starts and you get the confirmation. And not as a friendly verbal, yeah, you're good. A policy you can point to on paper isn't protection. A policy you can't point to on paper isn't protection. It's hope. And while you've got your agent on the phone, ask the two follow-ups that catch the gaps we covered. If I move out during the work, does anything in my coverage change? Does having crews and a construction project on site affect my coverage in any way? You're naming the vacancy clause and the business activity exclusions out loud on purpose and making your agent address them directly. If there's a problem hiding in your policy, that's how you find it now, over the phone with time to fix it, instead of later in a denial letter where it's too late to do anything about it. Move three, verify insurance on anyone you personally bring into the site. We just covered why. The second you hire your own roofer, your own handyman, your own anybody, the liability for their work is yours. So before they step onto your property, you get evidence of their insurance, the same way a good general contractor would. No proof, no access. This is the rule that keeps a side deal from turning into a spiral. And use the same standard we built last episode. Not a screenshot, not a year-old form folded up in the truck. A current certificate, ideally straight from their insurance agent, naming the policy and the coverage. If you want to be airtight, you can call the carrier and confirm it's active. Exactly the move that we talked about. Exactly the move we walked through for your contractor. It feels like a lot for a small side job. I know, but the side jobs are precisely where people drop their guard, and the trouble knows it, finds it. And move four. The one nobody tells you about because it happens after the dust settles. Once the project is finished, call your insurance company back. Tell them what you did. The new roof, the updated electrical, the modern kitchen, whatever it was. A lot of those improvements actually lower the risk profile of your home. And that can mean a discount on your policy going forward. You did the work that made the house safer and sturdier. You might as well get rewarded for it instead of leaving that money out there on the table. Almost nobody makes that call. Be the one who does. And here's a second reason that call matters just as much. Your home is now worth more than it was, and it may cost more to rebuild than your old coverage assumed. So if you added square footage or you seriously upgraded finishes and you don't update your policy, you can end up underinsured, fully protected for the house you used to have, and short on the house you've got now. So that closing call does double duty. It can lower what you pay, and it makes sure your coverage actually matches the home you just spent all that money building. Don't skip the victory lap. It pays off. So here's your protection, start to finish. Call before work begins and tell them everything. Get the right coverage, builder's risk or an endorsement confirmed in writing. Verify insurance anyone you bring on for yourself, and call back when you're done to capture any discount you've earned. 4 moves, mostly 1 or 2 phone calls, and you've gone from quietly exposed to genuinely protected through the whole project. All right, so let me pull this all together and point you to these free worksheets that I'm developing, these little micro tools, I call them, that you'll be able to see in the show notes. And just so that you don't have to remember all this stuff, click on it, enter your email, it'll be free. And then you can use it to answer all these questions for you. And you can go back through previous episodes. I started doing this maybe a couple months ago, so there's a few different tools for you to use based on the episode content. So trying to develop something that's actionable for you so you don't have to think too much. All right, so let's recap because this is half of the insurance story that almost nobody hears. Your existing homeowner's policy was built for a home you live in, not a construction site. And a major renovation can open real gaps in it around vacancy, around what counts as your residence, around business activity, and around the work itself. Builder's risk insurance, also called course of construction coverage, is the tool built to fill that window. Weather, fire, theft, vandalism, the whole exposed middle of your project, right? And the moment you bring your own person onto the job, the liability for their work becomes yours. So you verify their coverage before they ever set foot on the property. The homeowner who makes one call before the first nail is the homeowner who stays protected the whole way through. So this kind of thing, knowing which calls to make and when, so nothing slips through the gap, is exactly what we're building into this BuildQuest application that I'm developing. And I have our assistant Quinn in there that prompts you with the right questions in the right moment. So you don't have to know what you don't know. So I'm still in development, and you can reserve an advanced user spot at buildquest.co, and I'll add you to my list, and then we'll start communicating with you when we get close to launch, and would love to have you test it out for me and give me some good feedback. And I'd love to hear from you. Did you renovate and only find out afterward where your insurance actually stood? Or did you make the call up front and dodge a problem? Either way, I love the stories. Email me at the address in the show notes, or come find us on conversations over on our Facebook page. And I try to read every single one. And here's where we're headed next. We've spent 2 full episodes making sure you and your home are protected by the right insurance. And next time, we turn to a word that can make a homeowner's stomach drop the first time they hear it on their project: a lien. What is it? How it can land on your property even when you paid your contractor in full, and how to protect yourself from it. It's one of the most important things a homeowner can understand before money starts changing hands, and you will not want to miss that episode. So as always, I'm Bill Reid, your home building coach, and I am here to enlighten, empower, and protect you on your project. Let's go make it happen.